Okay, consider a variable which is following Brownian motion. Okay, this variable that is there, is following Brownian motion xt. Because it follows Brownian motion, what we have seen is any function of this particular variable will basically have dx times the partial derivative with respect to the variable plus 1 half times del f by del x squared times dt. Okay, this is what we have seen. Now in order to evaluate 0 to t xt dt, okay, let us consider f is equal to x squared divided by 2. Okay, if we do that, then what we find is that df that is there is equal to xt d of x. Okay, and then because that is what df by dx is equal to, it's just xt. And then when you take the second derivative, this thing just becomes 1, but there was a factor of 1 by 2 here, so there's a 1 by 2 here times dt. Okay, now let us consider this integral 0 to t df, that is just going to be equal to xt squared minus x0 squared divided by 2. Okay, but the right hand side, what we have is the right hand side is going to be from 0 to 2 xt dxt. Okay, and when I'm taking this integral, it's just going to be 1 half times t. Okay, we have that. Just make the substitution over here, we get this expression. Over here what we are saying is that the Brownian variable that is there, we started at time t is equal to 0, so we basically know that particular variable value and we just put it equal to 0. Okay, next, same thing we could do for the second problem that has been given, problem number 7 in the tutorial, which is this problem, that x squared dxt. How are you going to show this? What you will have to do is you will have to start off with f of xt is equal to xt cubed by 3, and then you can get the answer. Okay, problem number 8 is telling you the following: if s satisfies a log normal walk, find the differential equation satisfied by this particular function. So we try to do that. What we do is, for a long normal walk, we know that ds is equal to a drift term plus a term which is basically Brownian motion. Okay, h is equal to this factor. We know that dh is going to be equal to partial derivative with respect to s times ds, partial derivative with respect to t times dt, plus 1 half second derivative and the square. Okay, this thing is just standard way in which you could basically look at differentials. Okay, the first derivative that is there, you just make the substitution, n times s times n minus 1 times just whatever you had for ds over here. Then you're having the same thing, dh by dt, make that substitution over here, the derivative that you have. And then what we have is, in this particular case, what we do is, this thing is what we had said, whenever we're having ds squared, what we do is we consider the average value of whatever is there on the inside. Okay, the thing is, ds, one particular value is ds, that is this thing squared. When you're going to square it, it's a second order magnitude, it's dt squared, and that thing is of a lower value compared to dt, when dt is very small, so ignore. The cross term that is there, the average value when you take is going to be equal to 0, because the average value of xt that is there is equal to 0, dx is equal to 0. And then what we are seeing is the squared that is there, the squared number that is there, average value of that is equal to t. Okay, is equal to dt. Yeah, because it's a that is how Brownian motion is defined. So we consider 1 half second derivative, the second derivative of this particular function with respect to s, n minus 1 times n times s raised to n minus 2 divided by 2. This thing is multiplied by the squared function that you have, sigma squared s squared, and then there's a dt function here. Okay, so then this is what we have, and this thing that is written over here is just opening up things. Okay, opening up the brackets and collecting terms. Okay, not collected terms, but just opened up the bracket. Okay, problem number 9 that we have is that we have been given ds is equal to a sum of a drift term, but the drift term coefficient is function of s and t, and the and the Brownian motion term, but this is also function of s and t. So the thing is, say we have been given gs. Okay, question is how to choose a and b so that there is no drift term for this term gs. Okay, so as the way gs varies, make sure that there is no drift term. So to see that, what we do is, we have ds, it is obeying this relationship. Take the partial that we have, will give us the following. There is no time dependence, so only thing we'll have is a ds and ds squared term multiplied by these partial derivatives. Okay, we make the substitution for ds. Whenever I'm having a ds squared, I take the average. That is what I had seen when we are doing the R2 lemma evaluation. ds squared evaluation, there will be a dt squared which we ignore. There will be a cross term which we ignore because the average value of dx is 0, and then there will be a square term with the dx squared. Okay, and the square term value that is there is equal to a squared dt, because dx squared value is equal to dt. Okay, so this is what we have is equal to a squared dt. Okay, now in case we want to have a zero drift, okay, what we should be having is that the sum of this plus this should be equal to 0. Okay, so in order to have the zero drift, that is what we want. Okay, so that we just make the substitution over here. Okay, b, so yeah, so b times dg by ds, okay, has to be equal to minus 1/2 times second derivative times a squared. There is an a squared, it's written as a over here, but we can just make the correction. Okay, so then a and b basically have to satisfy this relationship, so that g that is there is a variable which basically doesn't have any drift, a stochastic variable with no drift. Okay, next consider the following question. We are given this Black-Scholes model. So the thing is, we are asked to find the most general solution for the Black-Scholes equation with these two numbers as, either v is function of just s, or it is basically the s and the t parts are basically separated. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, the Black-Scholes equation, you can just see the text. There will be a partial derivative with respect to time. There will be second derivative with respect to s. There will be that thing is multiplying the variance times s squared. Then there is a dv by ds, that is multiplying the interest rate s minus rv is equal to 0. Okay, so if you make this substitution above, this answer above, then what we have is time will not be there, this term is not there. Rest what we have is we just take v and we make a substitution. V wherever you see, put a equal to that, a here as well as a here. Okay, and this term that is there is equal to 0. Okay, for this answers. Okay, now consider the following. Make as is equal to a times s raised to n. Okay, make the substitution over here. They ask you to find a general solution, take this, substitute over here. Then what we see is when I make the substitution over here, this expression, all of these terms, I make the substitution here. Second derivative basically will give me n times n minus 1 by sigma squared times s raised to n minus 2, but then n minus 2 will multiply with the s squared and give you an s raised to n. Here what I have, I basically get, when I take the first derivative, I get r times n times s raised to n minus 1. That multiplies by s, gives you an s raised to n. And then what we have is, we are also going to be having a term minus r times s raised to n. That is equal to 0. Okay, so now what we do is, let us do the following. Take the s raised to n, remove that s raised to n. This thing is common factor, remove that out. All we get is an expression for n, a second a quadratic equation for n, which is dependent upon r and sigma squared. It's a quadratic equation. There will be two solutions, n plus n minus. Okay, so that's why we can write the general solution is basically a1 s raised to n plus b1 s raised to n minus. Okay, that is, we'll use both the solutions that we can get for n, and then we can construct a particular solution which is the sum of the two. What we have utilized over here is also, in case I'm given two solutions. Okay, so this thing is one solution, a1 s raised to n plus, b minus b1 s raised to n minus. Sum of them is also a solution. Why? Because the Black-Scholes equation is a linear equation. For a linear equation, anytime you're having two solutions, you can add them up. Any linear combination of two solutions is also a solution. Okay, for a linear partial differential equation. Next what we say is, let us say vst is equal to bs times ct. Okay, now in case this is the expression that we have, they're asking us, okay, what is the general solution? What is the most general solution? Okay, they asked you that. So take this, plug it inside the Black-Scholes equation. The Black-Scholes equation is here. What you do is you plug this in the Black-Scholes equation and divide the Black-Scholes equation by bs times ct, divided by ct. Okay, what happens is, this is the partial derivative. Okay, because it's a partial derivative, the bs that is there is going to come out of this partial derivative, and then dividing by bs times ct, the numerator and denominator bs is going to cancel. So what I'm going to have is 1 by c d by dt ct. Okay. Similarly over here, what I'm going to be having is, over here the c's that are there, these terms that are there is no c there. Okay. The c that is there is not going to be derivative taken, so it's basically a constant for the derivative. You remove the c outside, it is going to come in the numerator in c in these two terms, divided by bs ct. The c is going to cancel out, so I'm going to get 1 by b del squared b by ds squared plus 1 plus r by b db by ds. Okay, r minus r, this thing is equal to 0. Okay, this is equal to 0. Okay, so the general solution that we have now, the whole idea over here is this term that is there is independent of s. Okay, this term that is there is independent of t. It is only dependent on s, and this is only dependent on t. Okay, so the only way that this thing can be equal to 0 is if each of these terms is basically a constant. Okay, because there is no way that something that is varying by t is going to be cancelled by something that is just varying by s. The only possibility, only way this thing can be equal to 0 is if this is basically it's basically a constant and this is a constant, and the constants are of opposite signs. Okay, so this is what we have. The general solution that we have over here is going to be this thing is equal to m. Okay, which the solution is going to be ct is equal to c naught e raised to mt. Okay, and then this solution that is there is going to be equal to minus m. Okay, now as far as this solution goes, the solution of this is just the common solution c naught e raised. This thing is an exponential function. That is the solution of this particular equation. Okay, and as far as this expression goes, okay, we have this expression. Okay, in case we make a substitution, okay, in case we make a substitution, s raised to n raised to m. Okay, over here what we basically do is we basically make a substitution of s raised to some function number n, which is a function of m. Okay, once we do that, then what we see is that the partial derivatives that are there, over here what we will be getting is this thing just has the same form as what we have done over here. Okay, here in case just the same thing as we had done over here. Say we had divided by a over here, there would be an a over here and there was a minus r. Okay, that is the same thing. What we have done is over here we divided by b. Okay, there's a b. So the solution for this is again going to be like going as s raised to n, which is a function of m. I take that, I substitute it over here, I get an expression for m, a quadratic equation for n, which is a function of m. Because it's a quadratic equation for n, which is a function of m, there have to be two solutions. I can write those two solutions as nm plus nm minus. Okay, for each value of n, I'm basically going to have two accepted solutions of n. Because of that, I can take any two expressions. So the thing is, the most general solution of this expression then is going to be a raised to m s raised to nm plus b raised to m s raised to nm minus. This is just something that we have seen over here. Two solutions, only thing that is there now, these things are basically dependent upon m. Okay, we have these two equations, we have this solution. So the actual solution that is there is c times b, right? So take this and multiply this in this manner, multiply these two things in this manner. The c naught I'm just absorbing in the a's and b's. Okay, and then the thing is there was no constraint on m, and m was chosen to be any number, so you could basically just sum or all possible values of m. Okay, and then this thing becomes the most general solution. Okay, yeah, so we go to the next question. The next question is, they're asking you to prove the following bounds on the European call options with expiry at time t on an underlying share price s with no dividends. First expression that they want you to prove is that s that is there is much more smaller than c that is there is much more smaller than s. Okay, so first of all, in order to do these problems, what we do is the following. We go back and we see that the solutions of the Black-Scholes equation that we had done, okay, are basically equal to the at any particular time. Let me write this at any particular time. Okay, at any particular time, what we have is we integrate over all values of s prime, okay, and put up the payoff function over here. Okay, so I should have just erased this here. Okay, integrate over all values of s prime, put up the payoff function over here. Okay, and then what you have is that by inside the payoff function put s prime, and then you multiply it by this factor. Okay, so this thing is what we had just seen, and there is a this factor over here. This thing was the solution that we had got, okay, in the that I had done in the lectures. Okay, so what we have is that the solution of the Black-Scholes equation, okay, becomes, you have this Black-Scholes equation. Okay, I mean, this thing is the solution of this Black-Scholes equation. Okay, now what you do is do the following: choose a function g s of t which is equal to c s of t minus s. Okay, because c obeys the Black-Scholes equation, we could substitute g plus s is equal to c in this expression. Okay, yeah, c and v are the same thing. Okay, when we do that, when I'm going to substitute c is equal to v is equal to g plus s, over here this is just going to be del g by del t, because the s is another variable. This is a partial differential with time. Then I'm going to have 1 over 2 this thing squared, and then there's going to be a partial derivative only with respect to s squared, because twice the derivative I take of 1 minute, let me just write it this way, it's more clear. So okay, so then I could write that c is equal to g plus s. Okay, let us note this. Okay, so what I do is, once I have that, what I can see is I substitute c is equal to g plus s over here. When I take the second derivative with respect to s, this thing just becomes del squared g by del s squared, because second derivative of s basically is equal to 0. That is how I get this term. This term is only a first derivative with respect to s. So then when I take the first derivative, this thing is just the first derivative with respect to s plus 1. Okay, times s. Okay, minus r times g plus s. Okay, which is equal to 0. Okay, so this is what I have. So I have a partial derivative here, a partial derivative here. The rs over here cancels with the rs over here, and I've got an rg minus rg. Okay, so what I have is that the equation that I'm getting for g is having the same form as the equation for the call option. Okay, so that means the solution of a g is also going to be a solution like this, where g basically has to be the final condition. I have to just substitute the final condition. Now, because c that is there has a final condition that it is equal to s minus e when s is greater than e, and s smaller than e when s is smaller than e, g that is there will basically just, if you take the substitution, because g is c minus s, it will basically be equal to minus e when s is greater than e, and it will be equal to minus s when s is smaller than e. Right? So since what we are having is that the final condition is that this thing is smaller than 0. Okay, in the final condition things are smaller than 0. If you just plug the fact that the final condition is smaller than 0, these numbers are just positive. Integral like this is also going to imply that this term is also always negative. I mean, if it was g, okay, this thing is g, this value is g, this thing is the final condition for g. If I substitute a final condition for g, the final condition is negative. That means the value of this g that is there will also be negative. Because value of g is always negative, that basically just gives you the expression that c is always smaller than s. Okay, and that is what we had to prove. C is smaller than s. Okay, yeah. Next, what they are asking us to prove is the following. They are asking us to prove that c is greater than maximum of s minus e exponential of minus r t minus t is 0. Okay. The way to show that, way to prove that is the following. Okay. As far as our call option goes, we know that it's a European call. So the final condition is just max of s prime minus e comma 0. So this is actually the evaluation, okay, of the call option. Okay. Now look at the following. In case I put sigma equal to 0, Okay, then this particular term is 0. So for most reasons this exponential will, because it's an exponential of minus infinity, in case this is non-zero, okay, this the contribution is basically going to be 0 for the integral. The only place where I'm going to get a contribution is where this term is also 0. When this is also 0 and this is also 0, then this thing might not be, this is not minus infinity, so I would get a contribution. Okay, that particular contribution, where is it going to be coming from? That would contribute when this is equal to 0. You put sigma equal to 0 over here, okay, and then look at this. What you will be having is, you have to solve log of this thing is equal to minus r times t minus t prime, t minus b t. Okay, this is the expression. This term that is there is equal to 0. Okay, the solution for that term is s prime is equal to s e raised to r t minus big T minus small t. Okay, this is what I have the expression for it. Okay, so in case the thing is, in order to not to get any confusion over here, let me consider the following thing. Let me consider the limit instead. Sigma goes to 0, so sigma is not 0, but sigma is very close to 0. Okay, then what I have is, in case where this thing is equal to 0, this exponential is just going to be exponential of 0. Okay, so that means it is going to contribute with value 1. Okay, so then it's going to contribute with value 1. The value for s prime in this integral, where this thing is equal to 0, is just s times e raised to r t minus t. Okay, I get that. Once I'm getting that, I make the substitution over here. What I get is, exponential is the answer that I'm getting is, this is equal to exponential of s minus e raised to minus r t minus t is comma 0. Okay, so the idea, so what I was showing you is that in case the variance is is negligible, okay, then the value of the option at any point is just given by this particular value. Okay, if you take into consideration this expression. Okay, so once I've been given that the value of the option is given by this expression. Okay, now next what we do is do the following. Do the following. Take the derivative of dc by d phi, that is, take the derivative of this thing with respect to phi. Check it for yourself that when you take the derivative of this exponential with respect to phi, it is always greater than 0. Okay, so this thing is just the intuition that the value of the call option, the more the variance, more you're expecting the asset price to be very high at the at expiry. That's why more the value of the call option. Okay, so because dc by dt is always greater than 0, what we have is that the value of the call option that is there when phi is not equal to 0 is definitely going to be higher than this. Okay, and that is what you had asked to prove. Okay, the final thing that you have been asked to prove is the following. They have been asking you to prove the following over here. C1 minus T2, where C2 are calls with exercise prices the same, E1 is greater than E2. Okay, so what you do is, again over here, you just do this particular problem using the hints that I've given over here. You start with this as the solution, okay, and then work around. Okay, so once we have that, okay, the final problem that we will be doing is, they are asking you the following. Prove that the following bounds on the European call options. Okay, CA is greater than CB, where the calls are such that everything else is the same, exercise is the same, except the exercise dates are different, and TA is greater than TB. Well, how do we do this? The way to do is the following. We know that the solution is just given by this factor for a European call. What they're telling you is, if the T's, one second, the derivative that we have to check is something else. Sorry. Okay, what you do is take the dc by dt. Look at what the value of dc by dt is. In order to evaluate the value of dc by dt, take these two terms, take the derivative with respect to big T. Show that particular derivative that is there is greater than 0. I mean, you just have to do a calculation over here and you can easily see that. Okay, Once you show that, because this thing is greater than 0, then we know that if further away the expiry date, further away the value of the call option. Okay. And the reason behind this is also kind of obvious, because what it basically says is that more the time that is towards expiry, more the time for the asset to basically increase in value. Okay, so that is the reason more you would be expecting the value of the call option to be. Okay, so this thing is equal to just do this, dc by dt, and show that this thing is greater than 0. Okay, next thing that we are asking you to do is the following. Okay, they are asking you, this thing is point B. 1 minute. They're asking you to prove the following. Okay, that if you're having calls, okay, such that C1, C2, C3 are calls with the same expiry, but the exercises and prices are different and they are in an order. E1 is smaller than E2 is smaller than E3, then we have to prove the following relationship. Okay, they ask you to consider the following hint. Okay, so what do? We consider this particular quantity, maximum of S minus E2, because we could write because of this expression, because E2 is in the middle, that's the reason you could always write it in this kind of a form. The lambda is smaller than 0. So I take the E2, I write it in that kind of a form, minus lambda, minus 1 minus lambda, E3, comma 0. Okay. Once I have that, what I do is, I'm having the following form. What I'm doing is, then next what I do is, I'll basically write S lambda times S plus 1 minus lambda times S. Okay. S that is there, I'm writing as this plus this term. Okay. Once I do that, I can collect the term which is corresponding to lambda, which is S minus E1, term which is corresponding to 1 minus lambda, which is S minus E2, and this thing is comma 0. Okay. So if you're having that, then the thing is, if S is greater, now just look at this limits. Okay. If S is greater than E3, okay, then what we have is that this is just equal to the S is greater than E3, then we have both these terms are greater than 0. That's why the maximum of this term and this term is always going to just be lambda times maximum S minus E1 0 plus 1 minus lambda times maximum S minus E3 0. Okay. Now next the thing is, so then that's why we are getting the expression that maximum of this is equal to the term over here when S is greater than E3. Now next particular term let us consider is when S is basically between E1 and E3. Okay, then what we have is that this term that is there, okay, will be negative, because this term that is there is negative. Okay, then what we have is that this whole term that is there is definitely going to be smaller than just maximum of S minus E1, right? So I could write this as sorry, sum of S minus E1. Okay, so this is what I have. Okay, this thing is going to be maximum of lambda of S minus E1 comma 0. Okay, because this term is going to be negative. Sorry, 1 minute. Yeah, if I'm going to look at 1 second, yeah, if I'm just going to compare this term, okay, the term over here, okay, if this S is in this limit, this term is negative. Okay, so then it's obvious that this term is going to be smaller than just this term if I'm looking at it. So this thing is going to be smaller than maximum of lambda S minus E1 comma 0. Okay, which is basically smaller than, which is basically equal to 1 minus lambda times maximum S minus E3 comma 0, because this term is anyway going to be negative because S is smaller than E3. This term is equal to 0 because S is smaller than E3. Okay, so what we should have seen is that in two limits, S greater than E3 and S is in this limit, this term is always, this particular term that is there is always going to be either equal to this term, or is it going to be smaller than this term, or is going to be smaller than this term. Okay, so this is what we prove, that max of this is always max of S minus max of the this payoff that is there with expiry E2 is always smaller than, not the max, the payoff with E2 is smaller than lambda times payoff with E1 plus 1 minus lambda times payoff with E3. Okay, now that is the expression that we have as far as payoff goes. Okay, then what we do is, since the value of the options that are there are only dependent upon the payoffs, okay, since the payoffs are obeying that relationship, you just make the substitution and just show that the call options obey the relationship.